Okay, I will start again. Good afternoon, everyone. I will call the meeting to order at 1:04 p.m. I'd like to thank everyone for coming today, and we will have, my understanding is the owner of the application today joining us also online. We do have, I believe, a new member today, Jonathan. Welcome, and if there's any questions throughout, please don't hesitate to ask. Adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt, please? Okay. That was Keith. And may I have a seconder, please? James. Any corrections, changes, additions? Not seeing any, I will call the question. All of those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. My handwriting is terrible. Adoption of the minutes. Hopefully everyone has received the minutes. I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to start the discussion. May I have a mover for the minutes, please? James. A seconder. Jonathan. Discussions, additions, changes to the minutes. James.
I noticed that the attendance for the two staff members should be shifted up. It's down in the regrets line. 10.1, the fourth bullet, dealing with clarification of issues around the register should read 18 designated properties instead of simply listed saying 13. And 10.2 related to the Heritage Awareness Week. And in that time, I offered to find images and make up some copy, which I did.
Okay, thank you. Other changes, corrections? So I'll call the question, adoption of the minutes as amended. All of those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any declaration of pecuniary interest today? I don't think anyone has submitted. Okay, delegations, presentations. I don't think we have any formal delegations today, which brings us directly into business 7.1. The application for the Heritage Celebration Grant at 1113 Prince Street. We know that the property owner is here today, and I'm just wondering if she would like to make a few comments before we begin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
okay,
you're a little
sorry.
quiet.
Sorry. I was not expecting to speak. I thought I was just going to watch you guys. Is there anything? Yeah, is there any questions that I can answer?
I will turn to the members around the table. Are there any questions regarding the grant?
It's actually the third grant for the property. However, the first one was never completed. It was the foundation repairs on the property. That was the first grant. The second grant was for one of the dormers last year. And then this would be the third, but the first grant was never completed. So it's effectively the second year. But all it's complete. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, great. Brock.
If you can hear me, is this, is the store a designated property or a listed property?
The building itself is a listed property.
Okay, listed. Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
If there's no questions, thank you for joining. Thank you for your continued work on the property as well. At this point, I'll ask the committee members, are there any, would someone like to move the application for approval?
I just have one minor question. Do we, I'm sorry, the timeline for this, is there any, I mean, do we know when the work is in hope to start?
It would be done, we haven't actually narrowed down a specific date, but it would be done before the end of the year.
Before the end of it?
Before the
End of
end
the
of
year.
Before
I'm
the end
sorry.
of this year.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I will move that,
Thank you.
I'm not sure what the wording is. You have it there probably already.
The approve the Heritage Celebration Grant application submitted for 1113 Prince Street for up to $2,500 for work to fix the corner dormer window as set out in the application for the Heritage Celebration Grant. May I have a seconder?
Brock's turn.
We just have to get a seconder and then we can have it further.
I second that.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Your phrasing there, you said up to 2,500. I assume we're making a grant of 2,500 at this point.
Yeah, the resolution says up to, this is the event that came in less than $5,000 if we only.
Any other questions, comments, additions? Brock?
Simply because I'm new to the Heritage Committee, do such grants as this, do they go before council, or because there's money in the reserve, or does the Heritage Committee have the authority to just issue the grant? Thank you.
There you go. Report will be brought to council at the May council meeting to authorize the grant.
I could barely hear that, but it sounded like
sorry,
it goes to council.
Yes, sorry, a report will be brought to council at the May meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Any comments from staff? Okay, thank you, everyone. If there are no further questions or comments, I will call the question. All of those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 7.2, Heritage Grant Policy. I would ask staff if they would like to introduce this item.
Through you. So since the date of the working group meeting, it was discussed at that meeting that staff would undertake a review and update of the grant policy to address some changes in terms of adding a component that would facilitate a grant of up to $5,000 for a newly designated property, just in response to the Bill 23 changes and to try and incentivize possibly some of the listed properties moving towards designation and kind of rewarding them for making that step. So the grant policy's been updated to contemplate that, as well as making the $2,000 or $2,500 grant something that would be eligible every 2 years as opposed to annually. Other than that, there's just been some general cleanup and editing of the grant policy that we've done, taking a lot of extra wording out. Apologize that this is just coming across your desk here at the meeting for review and input, but staff would be happy to answer any questions that you have on this today, and then moving forward if there's additional questions as you go through the document and the changes what we're proposing.
Hello.
Brock.
Yeah, thank you. Through you. To the planning, just looking at what I think is labeled as 5.6 anyway, approval of application and payment of grant. It says the evaluation of eligibility will be conducted by Planning and Development Department. What's the role of the Heritage Committee then with that respect? Has it come through, or does it then go through the Heritage Committee, or has it already been there? What's the role or dual role there? Thank you.
Through you, Chair. That change that we've proposed there is just as the initial intake of the application, that staff would be prepared to go through and ensure that the property and the proposed project meets the eligibility criteria set out in the policy. And then should that be confirmed, and then we would be moving the application through the normal process to bring it forward to the committee for consideration and then to council for provisional approval.
Great, thanks very much. Thank you.
James? Again, a process question, given that the Heritage Committee meets only every 3 months, is there some mechanism whereby the Heritage Committee could approve that before a subsequent meeting?
Sorry, just for clarification, are you talking about approving this?
Grant application come in, the planning department has deemed it eligible, and then the notion is it's presented to the Heritage
Okay.
Committee. In terms of moving things along, is there a procedure whereby the Heritage Committee could
Sure.
approve?
Through you, the terms of reference for the committee do allow for a meeting to be at the call of the chair. It hasn't been an issue to date in terms of the number of applications we've received and dealing them within the time frame of the Heritage Committee. However, if that were to happen, we could certainly hold the committee for a special meeting date. Just to add one item we did talk about as a working group, with the increase to the $5,000 for designated properties as proposed, I did indicate I would verify how much money is currently in the Heritage Grant Reserve Fund. There's $24,700 in that reserve fund right now.
That's exclusive of this year's 10,000. Or that includes.
Correct. We have $10,000 in the budget for this year. The $24,000 is unused funds from previous years that have been moved into the reserve fund. So if we were to get a significant number of applications, we would be able to entertain the requests.
Thank you. James?
Well, detail questions. There was some written discussion in this document questioning structural repairs, and I'm wondering whether number appendix A2, Roman numeral 2, could not simply say structural repairs and then the reference to including beams and foundations. It seems that the intent of this at the moment is to leave out any interior structural.
Through you, the intent of that is specifically regarding exterior, because the interior wouldn't necessarily be a designated feature of the structure, which wouldn't be in line with the designation of a property.
So a 150-year-old house with a sloping ridge line, would that be considered exterior or interior if there was any attempt to maintain its integrity?
Yes. Yeah, it would be considered structural, exterior structural as part of the roof
Well, that's
component of
considered
the building.
exterior.
Yeah.
Okay. And my other question would be, the number 6 has been struck out, replacement of original materials with modern materials. Is there no need to have that in this area? And in terms of process, is how important an issue is that in terms of conservation and repairs?
Those were stricken out because they're clear, those are not specifically painted, such as the painting and the masonry are subject to committee approval. That's only on a designated property. But it would be part of the grant application that the committee would be looking at. So we have supported grant applications for painting on previous ones, which would be, it would fall into other areas of this, which is why the replacement of original materials and modern materials, that would fall within the scope of work that's being presented in terms of exterior structural or doors, windows, verandas. It falls into the others. So they were duplications of what are previously in the list.
Thank you.
Other questions? Jonathan? You might pull it a little closer. Do you have a green light?
Yes.
There we go. Now we got one. Questions of clarification for you. The first is the 5,000. After you get the 5,000, are you still eligible for the subsequent 2,500s after that?
No, the 5,000 would be a cap.
One time, that's it forever. Okay, great. And back to where James was going. So if you have part of the structure that just happens to be inside, like it's a cross beam holding up the entire thing, that's not eligible?
I think it would depend on the full scope of work that's being proposed. If you're doing something structural to that effect, it's intended that it's an exterior feature, but if there's some interior works associated with it, we'd have to look at it and the committee would have to determine.
Okay, so it wouldn't be excluded just because that was the case?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Clarification on your question. When you were asking about the $5,000 and then subsequent amounts, were you thinking that once property is designated, that in 2 years they'd be eligible for 2,500? Was that your question?
Yes. Oh, okay, great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Brock?
Thank you, through you. Under heritage status, I guess 3.1, I'm not knowledgeable about a heritage easement. Properties with heritage easements are also eligible. In one sentence, what does that mean? What's a heritage easement mean if it's not designation or a listing?
Through you, it's a form of heritage protection that involves an agreement registered on title between the property owner and the municipality that sets out requirements for upkeep and maintenance. It's a form of heritage protection separate from designation under Part 4 of the Act.
It sounds then, how do I put it, a little more complex. And do we have any heritage easements at this time? Do we know in the township?
I believe there's one on the Lyndhurst Bridge. I'm not certain if
Yeah.
there's any others.
Sure. Okay, that would make sense. Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Has everyone had a sufficient time to take a look at the document?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So if we don't approve this today, it's going to hang for 3 months, right? We have to,
That is correct.
unless we have a special meeting.
If I could just, I was going to speak to it under other business, but it might be relative now. We were targeting to have a heritage application on alteration for designated property for Springfield today, but weren't able to bring that forward because the application wasn't complete. So one of the things, I don't know the exact timing for that, but I would anticipate within the next month and a half, we will be asking for a special meeting of the committee. If the committee is not comfortable making a recommendation with respect to these changes today, this could be placed on a special agenda that we will be likely requesting within the next month.
So is that going to work for you and Lindsay though? in terms of what we have discussed?
It does come down to the timing of the letter going out to the heritage property owners, as we discussed as a working group, which has also been circulated because the letter is representative of the changes that are within the grant policy as proposed.
And then we shouldn't send the letter until this is approved?
That's correct, or we need to amend the letter to remove the language with respect to the incentive for the $5,000 one time.
And if I'm correct, we can't even say that until council approves that. Is that right?
That's correct.
So that could be yet another.
It would be a minimum of 2 months out, depending on the timing of the special meeting, because the amendments to the heritage grant policy need to go through council
And if we approve today, it will go to council
on May 8th.
for approval,
Yes,
including the $5,000.
that's correct.
I just, so we all understand what the process might be.
Yes. May I have, was someone willing to move the motion? We do have a motion. That the Municipal Heritage Committee recommends that council approve the amendments to the Heritage Celebration Grant Policy. As presented by staff at the Heritage Committee meeting on April 21st, 2023. Jonathan, I may have a seconder, please. James? Any further discussions, comments? If not, I will call the question. All of those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you to staff. Next item on the agenda, 7.3 draft letter to owners of properties on Heritage Register. And I would ask staff if they would like to speak to that.
So this is another item that was discussed at the working group. Staff have worked together to draft up this letter to go out to the numerous listed properties that we currently have on our register, those property owners, to explain the status of their property, the changes that are brought forward through Bill 23, to provide and explain their options in terms of potentially moving towards designation and what that would entail in terms of, securing approvals for alterations if their property was designated, giving them the option to request to remove their property from the register. Explain that if they do move forward with having their property removed, that there is a 5-year waiting period to be added back onto the register. And then we've got that paragraph on page 2 that outlines the incentive to potentially being eligible for a grant of up to $5,000 for newly designated properties within 2 years of their designation bylaw. Thank you.
Questions to staff?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one question. This is a form letter, and that's how it's going to be seen when it arrives in the mailbox, unless there's something that personalizes it a little bit. Is it going to have a cover with the identity of the property or some other information that they will know what property it is that's being referred to? Am I making your life extremely complicated by suggesting that?
We drafted it as a standard letter for ease of doing it, because we still have to go through the whole register and get the proper addresses for everybody in terms of figuring out.
But
the
yeah,
mailing.
do you
So
understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but the intent was that it does go out as a,
But if they see something that identifies their property, roll number, civic address, whatever,
well,
they're gonna suddenly say, oh, well, that's me.
it was our hope to do it as a form letter without having to customize each letter, because we do have to send out a significant number of them, and there's already a significant amount of
Okay.
staff time going into doing
Would
it.
it be
So
simpler to have just a form that on a separate sheet that went with it? that would identify their property? I mean, is that making your life?
Well, I'm not sure, like, they're already getting it in the mail. And it says that you're getting this
Yeah.
because you're the owner of a or a listed property. I guess we could look at putting a reline on each one, but that means staff have to go in and edit 81 letters,
Okay,
which is why it was structured as the way it is, but that's at the committee's discretion. It could take longer to get the letters out.
okay.
James? One suggestion in terms of workaround for what Keith is suggesting, and that is depending on the intent of this letter and when it's being mailed, I think there should be reference in here to the fact that the register is going to be on the website July 1st. And that the receiver of the letter can check whether they have been listed on that community website. But
We could add a paragraph to
in
that.
terms of our intention, I think it's important for the register being public on the website as part of this letter.
Further questions?
Jonathan? I do. Is it our intent to make this an incentive type of letter, or is it purely an inform? Are we informing people that this is what's going on, or are we encouraging them in some way?
We're encouraging them with the $5,000 grant. And we're informing them that their property is on the register and that we'd like information from them as to how they would like their property considered.
Yeah, I think anything that we could do to bring sort of the benefit to the front end of this, and maybe some of the regulation towards the back end of it would help people sort of grab their attention at the beginning and say, hey, there's something in this for you. And we as, you know, the township want to support you in that.
One thing we could do, sorry, through you, because obviously we're going to be bringing it forward after the grant policy is updated. It could be being provided to them as a owner of a property on the Heritage Register to inform them of recent changes to the Heritage Celebration Grant policy.
And their eligibility, right?
Yeah.
Great.
Through you, Mr. Chair. As part of the package of that material that I sent you, there was a kind of a flyer that had been created in 2015, which I'm not saying that it's totally appropriate for now, but it might be easily modified to have the information that Jonathan is thinking would like to see emphasized.
I'm just concerned about printing out color copies to go inside each one. Again, trying to minimize costs as it's related to that. We can update some of that stuff and put it on the website and refer people to the website potentially, but I'm trying to keep our costs down too, recognizing what's going into this. Because we didn't budget for the mail out. Because we didn't know we were going to have to deal with it at the time.
Through you, that my question would be, we have to pay for this mail out? The Heritage Committee has to come out of the Heritage Committee budget, is that what I'm understanding?
Well, it has to be paid for from some budget line. So yes, it will have to come out of our operating budget.
I see. So we're talking about the cost of printing it and the postage and.
Primarily the postage, but there's also the staff time that needs to go into it as well. So I'm just trying to balance resourcing here as that goes forward.
Right, but staff time does not count against our budget, is it?
No, it doesn't count against the budget, but I'm managing staff.
I'm just
time
trying to
resources.
understand, I mean.
The budget, the
I-
cost of the postage and stuff will need to be allocated. Any
I see, okay.
advertising we do is related to that. We can look at the flyer and see what would be involved in updating it and printing it and that type of thing. I haven't reviewed it in detail. Well, we can take a look at it and see. I'm just being mindful of how much we're putting into that envelope because I also don't want to go over on postage or anything else.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there was a time on the Heritage Committee when people on the Heritage Committee actually did fold and stuff letters. And I think, I mean, we still could help with that aspect.
That or equal 100%.
Hello?
Oh. Again, we need to look into what we can do in that respect. I'm not concerned about it, but if we need to review that flyer in more detail to see if there's any changes that need to be made to it.
Brock, did you have any questions? Brock, did you have any questions? I'm not sure if he can hear us.
Brock, can you hear us?
Wave at him again.
Can you try texting him, right?
I'll email him.
James.
Perhaps it's appropriate at this point to suggest that the revisions to this letter be approved at that extra meeting you're talking about, since this one may not be necessary.
That's
for-
fine, but the letter is more of an information piece. I don't know that we don't need a committee approval for the letter to go out.
Okay.
We can do
Okay.
modifications to the letter. I'm happy to circulate it once we've made the updates.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Brock, can you hear us?
100%.
Google is with us.
Connected to this.
Or is it Siri?
Thought it was Wilhelmina's and then.
Can you hear us now, Brock? Okay.
We have the ability to text.
Oh,
Did you text him through the Zoom?
No, I just emailed him.
If you, maybe
Maybe
you've
text
got
him.
the Zoom open on the screen and you chat him through the Zoom.
Yeah. While we are.
Maybe you can't do that as a webinar.
While we are sorting this out, are there any other questions? I just have one for staff, just knowing the timeline, because we have a July 1st deadline for the register. Would this be of assistance in going out in advance of that, just to let people know that this is coming, or is the intent to go after July 1st?
I think our intent was just to get it done as quick as we can and put it out there. And the context of the letter would reflect the timing dependent on when we have it complete. Because whether the letter goes out before or after the publishing of the register, we'll still have the update to the Heritage Celebration Grant process. So we could do it either way.
Perfect, thank you.
but through, yeah, but we really shouldn't send the letter out unless the register is on the website. Because if the letter says go to the website and it's not there.
But the letter could say that it will be published as of July 1st. So a lot of it's going to be dependent on us being able to get into and get all of the correct mailing addresses and everything set up to be able to get that out. I'm hoping we can get that done before. I would like to just get that done and get it out as soon as we can do it.
Okay, Brock, did you have any questions?
No, I don't, and I hope you can hear that. I had a little trouble on this end, so I think everything. I like the letter generally speaking, and I think sooner than later is better. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. I would pose the question to staff at this point. Do you need any more information from the committee?
No, I don't think so. I think we'll take it back. We'll make some revisions and we'll circulate the letter once we have some revisions made to it.
Great, thank you. That ends the business section of the meeting. We move on to information items under section 8. 8.1, a staff update.
I don't really have anything to update at this point in time, just that we are continuing to work away at the register and get things pulled together, and we'll be in touch if we have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Through you, just one question on that Wi-Fi password again. Can I get that so I haven't logged next time?
I'll provide it to you. I just not over the meeting. Thank you.
Item 8.2, council update.
Nothing earth shattering. I did mention to council that we were looking for more participants for the working group. And I brought up the concept of perhaps sharing some employee time of our upcoming, I think, part-time employee who's going to be doing some heavy lifting book work. That's about all for now. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions regarding the council update? If not, item 8.3, other business. James?
Yeah, I was going to formally ask whether there's any budget to be allocated for the Heritage Conference that's coming up in London in June, because I would like to attend. And I've marked out the workshops I would like to go to and report back on.
Through you, we currently only have $500 budgeted for education and training. If we were to consider sending a member of the committee to that, we would need to take a report to council to have budget allocation. So we'd need a better idea of costs associated with it. And when is it, sorry?
It is late May, early June. I'm trying to remember the date myself.
So we would need to get to council as soon as possible with a recommendation on that. The council meeting in June would be the second Monday in June. So I would be hesitant to recommend registering for a conference that we don't currently have budget allocation for. So looking at timing realistically, it would have to hit the May 8th council meeting, which means I need the information now. So if we could pull together the cost of registration, hotels and everything else, I would need that. And I guess that the committee would need to pass a resolution as well.
Can someone suggest then I'm prepared to move it. I just am not sure what the wording should be.
Just for staff's information, the cost of the early bird is $275. And that's if booked before May 15th.
Then the additional costs would be the travel and the hotel.
Yes.
It might be realistic just to say, and I don't know what the costs of the hotels would be, but if we were to say perhaps up to $1,500 would that be sufficient? Just for a ballpark?
I'm trying to think of the hotel, give me a second.
How many nights is it?
It would be, it's Thursday evening, Friday, Saturday, but realistically, you're gonna have to stay over Saturday night.
Yeah,
So that would be one Thursday.
so it'd be 3 nights.
Yeah.
In a hotel.
Yeah.
Maybe up to $2,000 just to leave some room. So if the committee's prepared to look at a resolution to ask council for expenses up to $2,000. In addition to the current budget line of 500, which would cover the registration to address travel costs. Then we could take a report to council in May.
Mr. Chair, do we have items in our budget that could be reallocated for this?
Sorry, I wasn't on. Our budget is pretty lean. We don't really have much to reallocate. We really don't have much. We have $2,000 under a consultant's line for contracted jobs, and we have $1,000 for signs. So,
For signs, signs, you said?
yes, that was carried forward just in case there was anything that we ended up working on. I don't think that we will be working on signs this year, given the amount of work that we're going to have to put into the register and reviewing the listed properties. So we could look at allocating, we could potentially request to reallocate either the contracted jobs or the signs, and that should we need any contracted assistance, we go back to council with a further report when we know what we're looking for to have funds reallocated. Because it is possible that we may need to look at retaining a consultant depending on what comes forward in terms of requests for designation or further review of listed properties, at which time we would have a better idea of what funds we require. So it could be looked at in that context as well.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if we did do such a reallocation in the budget, do we have to present that to council?
Yes, we do. I have to get council approval to reallocate budget lines.
I would so move that we recommend to council that the $2,000 currently in our budget allocated for signs be reallocated to, what shall we call a category?
It's $2,000 allocated for contracted jobs.
Oh, it's contracted jobs.
Yeah, it's for contracted jobs.
I'm
But
sorry.
that be reallocated to education to allow a member of the Heritage Committee to attend the Heritage Conference in London. And I guess just to be covering everything off, I would also ask that the committee include who they would like to attend the meeting so that it's clear that there's only one member attending the meeting.
So I know James has expressed an interest. Are other members interested in attending the conference, or? I will be attending myself, but I'm paying for myself, so. Okay, James, I think you are our recommended delegate.
We need a seconder for that motion.
Well, I'll have a full motion here in a second. Question through to staff in terms of the reallocation. We are reallocating $2,000, but should we make it clear to council that we are allowing up to $2,500 in expenses?
Certainly that can be set out in the report and in the recommendation that it could be in the resolution that there's currently $500 in the training and development budget. And that the committee is recommending a reallocation of $2,000 from the contracted jobs budget line to allow for a budget of up to $2,500 for training and development to allow a member of the Heritage Committee to attend.
Do you have one?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, do we have a mover for that motion? Keith? A seconder? Jonathan, and we've lost Brock. I'll pause for a moment to see.
There it is.
Okay. Brock, just for your information, we have a mover and seconder on the motion. Any further questions, comments? If not, I'll call the questions. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you so much. Any other business? If not, we will go to adjournment. May I have a mover for adjournment? James, seconder? Jonathan? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you so much.